Hello there. My name is Ryan Wieland, and I am a pastor at New Crossing Church in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. And today it is snowing like crazy. But nevertheless, we're here to make another video commentary on the book of Ruth. This is one of the commentaries that's meant to accompany our sermon series in the book of Ruth. And so without further ado, let's grab our Bibles and jump right in. So in Ruth 2:17, we read, "So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley." First thing to notice is that she worked until evening. This tells us she worked the entire day. She didn't give up. And then she beat out what she had gleaned. This is an interesting word, chavat, if you want to remember it, have at it. It means to strike, beat, pound, hit it really hard. And so the process of gleaning would require you to beat out what you glean. And so you cut open the stalks and you beat out the stalks either by tying them all together and hitting them on the ground or hitting them with a stick. And it would start to separate the chaff, which is the stuff you don't want, from the grain, which is the stuff you want. This is a super dusty, incredibly labor-intensive process, and she did this until evening. Ruth is not just working, she's working hard. And this provision that God is showing up and giving to Ruth comes through real work that Naomi's called to do. And what's left over, or what she gets, is an ephah of barley. Now, an ephah is about 25 to 30 pounds. And an ephah is a lot, way more than you'd expect to get from a day of working as a gleaner. This text is showing us in a sort of subtle but very obvious way. It's subtle because it doesn't say it directly, but man, this is too much to just happen randomly. So it shows that God is providing for Ruth and Naomi. Then we read Ruth 2:18, "And she took it up and went into the city." So remember, they are in Bethlehem. So she went into Bethlehem. "Her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her what food she had left over after being satisfied." And so the word "saw" here carries the idea of recognizing, knowing. And so Naomi sees what has happened. She recognizes it. It's super visible and very obvious. And then after Ruth is satisfied, and the word satisfied here is sabah, and it means to be filled or satisfied or full. And after she's satisfied is when she brought what she had left over. So she brings out what she has left over after being satisfied. Means Ruth has so much that she doesn't need to just give leftovers. She doesn't need to not eat in order to provide for Naomi. She gets to provide out of abundance, not just from scraps. She's worked hard. She's able to provide for her mother-in-law, who she pledged herself to. It's a big deal. Then we continue on in verse 19. "Her mother-in-law said to her, 'Where did you glean today, and where have you worked? Blessed be the man who took notice of you.' So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, 'The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz.'" So the first thing, she took notice. So who is the man who took notice of you? Not just where did you work, but Naomi recognized that something so amazing as 25 to 30 pounds of grain is not a small thing. Something had to happen. Someone took notice of her and showed her kindness. And she wants to know who it was. And then Naomi goes on further and says, or previously, and says, "Blessed is the man who took notice of you." And to bless is to speak favor, to invoke God's favor on someone. And blessed means to be favored by God. And so Naomi is saying, whoever took notice of you, I pray that they are blessed, favored by God. And this is before Naomi knows who it is. That's important. This is before Naomi knows who it is. And then there's this mic drop moment where Ruth says his name is Boaz. And at this moment, Naomi suddenly realizes their whole situation is about to change. It may not mean a lot to us because we don't fully understand what is about to happen, but Naomi knows the cultural significance of this. And so she tells Ruth what's going on in Ruth 2:20. She says, "And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, May he be blessed by the Lord, whose kindness has not forsaken the living and the dead. Naomi also said to her, the man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers. So she doubles down on the blessing. She says, blessed is this guy. So he is favored by God. And then two key words show up in our text that are critical to all of Ruth because they're massive concepts in the entire Bible. They connect us into the entire Bible. The first is this word, kindness. And this word kindness is actually chesed or love. It is a covenant love. It's a loyal love. It is profound. It's faithful. It is steadfast. It is full of mercy. It is a love that is committed based on what I commit to. I'm going to commit to love you no matter what. This is the love that Jesus has for us. And that this is the type of love that drove him to the cross, his chesed for us. This is a huge concept in the book of Ruth and the whole Bible. And the next big key word is goel, or redeemer. And this concept of a redeemer is another concept just all throughout the whole Bible. The ultimate redeemer is directly who Jesus is. He's the redeemer of the whole world. And the redeemer culturally in the day was responsible for the family protection. It restored land. They preserved the family line and really was just the person that protected family members that needed somebody to redeem them, which is cool because Jesus is the Redeemer. He is Chesed itself. He is love incarnate. And when Naomi realizes who Boaz is, she recognizes that God is not just providing for a day. He's on a rescue mission to rescue Ruth and Naomi. Pretty cool. Then we read in Ruth 2:21, and Ruth the Moabite said, besides, he said to me, you shall keep close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest. A few key observations here. First, we see that Ruth is the Moabite. Hesed is being shown to the Moabite, the non-covenant person, the person outside of the covenant. Hesed is being shown to Ruth the Moabite. And then Boaz says, keep close to my young men. The idea of keeping close, clinging to, the word is different than cling earlier, but it is the idea of sticking close and clinging to. This implies proximity and protection. Again, it's dangerous. And the final thing to note here is it's once you finished all my harvest. And so listen, Ruth, you're supposed to stay close to my young men, follow behind them. This isn't just for a day. I want you to be protected and provided for days and days and weeks, and have leftovers to provide for you and Naomi. This shows overwhelming generosity to Ruth and Naomi. And then in Ruth 2:22, we see that Naomi starts to warm up to Ruth, and she says, and Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter, that you go out and be with his young woman, lest in another field you be assaulted. So Ruth said to her daughter-in-law, recognizing that it is her daughter-in-law, but Ruth calls her daughter. There's two different words here. Naomi doesn't call Ruth the daughter-in-law. She says, my daughter, which shows a connection, a close family relationship. Naomi is warming up. The bitterness is melting away. And Naomi recognizes that in another field, you could be assaulted. The Hebrew word here is pagah, and it means violently hurt, strike, violently encounter. This reminds us it is the time of Judges. It's dangerous. Even inside the town of Bethlehem, amongst the Jews, it's still very, very dangerous. Naomi is protecting or teaching Ruth, showing that Boaz is protecting Ruth physically and relationally too, saying, hey, you are my daughter. You're part of my family. Finally, in verse 2:23, so she kept close to the young women of Boaz, gleaning until the day of the barley and wheat harvests, and she lived with her mother-in-law. So if you look at the closing things here, we see that she did, in fact, she kept close, and so she was told to keep close, and so then she did keep close. And it was until the end of the barley and wheat harvest. So maybe Ruth has had some time to work the fields, and maybe she's shown that she's a woman who works hard, she's trustworthy, she's loyal, so she's had some time to live out what she says she's going to. And what's really cool, I think, is the text goes out of its way to say that she's lived with her mother-in-law. So The idea here is to live, yasav, and it is indeed just to live. What Ruth proclaimed she would do in her great, profound confession of loyal love to Naomi, she does. She provides for Naomi and she lives with Naomi because she loves Naomi and is committed to her. This is a pretty cool chapter. So what we see in this section is an overwhelming abundance of provision. There's protection and there's provision, all fueled by chesed. We also see some key ideas popping up in the words Redeemer and chesed, love, and we see that Jesus is the Redeemer and Jesus is love, which connects us to a ton of themes all over the Bible. Ruth is really getting exciting now, and really excited for you to join us next time. If you want to learn how to study the Bible on your own, you can check out this Bible tutorial I have for Blue Letter Bible. It allows you to study the Greek and the Hebrew on your own. And if you want to check out the beginning of our series, you can check out this video here. This is the first in our video commentary series. All right, till next time, God bless and have a great day.